Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A few weeks ago, I found myself on a flight taking off from Newark, New Jersey. And pretty much when you take off from Newark, New Jersey, and you fly east, so I found myself on a flight going to Eretz Yisrael. And of course, now we don't board by row anymore, we board by boarding group. We board by economic class. So I found myself in boarding group 17 because I had bought my ticket from a link from Dan's Deals with a Groupon after a coupon I got from Bagel Munch with no political overtones. And I found myself boarding a flight, and there's nothing like boarding a flight with Frum people, because the number of plastic bags that Frum people bring on an airplane is simply staggering. I don't know if you've ever watched the way the rest of the world travels, but they board a plane and they have a carry-on and they stick it under the seat in front of them. I board the plane, a nice, wonderful Hasidic fellow boarding right behind me, puts a refrigerator in the overhead bin, puts 18 Shetel boxes, 14 hat boxes, half the overhead bins is just his stuff, removes all these different plastic bags. We sit down. Most of the plane, when the pilots announce that we're starting to descend, that's when they get their stuff together. Not from people. We need basically 45 minutes to collect all the Sfarim and the Mishpachas and the Cheerios and the 9 sets of headphones that we've brought on this plane in order to be able to get ready. So we're sitting next to each other, and we are sharing the very challenging experience of trying to pierce the titanium-sealed Mahadran meal on the El Al flight. The plastic that surrounds the Mahadran meal is one of the strongest materials known to man. If it were up to me, I would build the plane out of this material. You begin by just trying to rip it open. That never works, so then you try the poke. After injuring your finger, you then bring it up to your mouth and hope no one's noticing and try to bite it open. Finally, once it's open and unwrapped, it seems to paru vayishritzu vayirbu. It just expands till it's a pile of plastic. You can't even see over it. Inevitably, as you're trying to balance all these different things on your tray, that is when the gentleman next to you decides, now is the time to wash. So we begin a conversation with each other, and he turns to me and he says, so, what part of Brooklyn are you from? And I said to him, I grew up in Los Angeles. I've only been to Brooklyn 10 times in my life, and all of them were to purchase matzah. Said, to me, Brooklyn is out of town. So he says to me, well, what city are you from? So I said to him, I live in the city of Passaic. To which he responded, Passaic is not a city. Passaic is a kehila. Pretty good for someone from Brooklyn. We currently find ourselves in the midst of the parshios that depict the construction of the Mishkan Hashem. As physical beings, we strive to constantly connect to the Kadosh Baruch Hu in our lives. What we would give for the opportunity to experience a manifesting presence of God here in this world. The Mishkan is depicted in intricate detail as each and every vessel, board, drape, and hook come together to assemble the architectural marvel that could somehow contain the presence of Hashem. Uncharacteristically, the facets of the Mishkan are depicted numerous times as the Torah chronicles. The initial command of construction, the actual work to fulfill these commands, and a reflection upon their completed grandeur before the Jewish people. In Perek Mem, the Torah finally brings us to the moment of the Mishkan's assembly, as Moshe Rabbeinu begins to construct the Beis Hashem. Vayihi b'chodesh harishon b'shana hashenis ve'echad lachodesh hukam hamishkan. Vayokem Moshe es hamishkan. And Moshe raised up the Mishkan. Vayitein es Adonai, vayosem es Kiroshov, vayitein es Berichov, vayokem es Amudov. He placed down the sockets, he situated its planks, he inserted its bars, he erected its pillars. Rashi tells us in Menachos Tafsadi Tes that the word Mishkan, vayokem es HaMishkan, vayokem Moshe es HaMishkan, the word Mishkan refers to the Yerios, to the curtains. Explain to Mefarshim that the Yerios, the curtains, were the encasing and the observed elements of the Mishkan, and therefore they defined the essence of the structure. The rest of the components delineated in the Torah were intended to scaffold the structure to allow the ornate and majestic Yerios to drape the Mishkan Hashem. And therefore, they had to be positioned first, with the inner structure of the Mishkan to follow. Eser hayerios masechoshev shenikru mishkan hukmu kodem akamas hamishkan. And from a construction standpoint, this is impossible. How can one first place the Yerios and then the elements within? What remains to hold up these curtains while you build the Mishkan underneath? How could Moshe possibly have satisfied this expectation of a Kodesh Baruch? Explains the Sefarno. There are two possibilities. V'imal derech nes. One is that there was a miraculous and divine intervention as the curtains defied the laws of physics and remained standing while Moshe Rabbeinu filled in the infrastructure below. And the alternative suggests the Sefarno, im bidei Adam machzikim bo, that a group of people held the Yerios up while Moshe constructed the structure beneath. Chazal write that the Mishkan personifies our experience in this world. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks of us to do the impossible. The lives we seek to construct, the homes we strive to build, the families we work to form, face circumstances that are beyond the constraints of our capacity. Those challenges can emanate from emotional stress, from mental illness, or the overwhelmingly and sometimes incapacitating outcomes of extremely difficult choices that members of our families have made. And we are left looking out at the landscape of the life that God has given us, trying desperately to continue building our Mishkan, while the Yerios are collapsing on top of us, suffocating our desperate attempts to just fit a board into a socket, to just accomplish one small thing. And even the most mundane tasks have become impossible in deference to the smothering vicissitudes of life that have fallen on top of us. Vayokem Moshe es HaMishkan. How does one respond to the mandate to do the impossible? One response is al derech hanes, to never lose hope, to daven and to yearn that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will provide a Yeshua. And somehow those Yerios will ascend, allowing us to relief and the space to reclaim our ambitions in building our lives. However, suggests the Sefarno, there's another possibility of how the entire Mishkan enterprise ultimately reached its form. V'im bidei Adam machzikim bo. And that is, a group of people walked over to an overwhelmed and disoriented Moshe, and without miracles or any supernatural intervention, simply lifted the Yerios up, making space for Moshe to accomplish his goals. Many in our community face deep challenges in life. Many are working so hard to build their Mishkan, and yet the overwhelming challenges they face are simply incapacitating. Emotional struggles, financial struggles, familial struggles often coalesce into an environment where not only the weight of the challenges themselves is overwhelming, but the ancillary impact that affects so many of the personal and familial dynamics from functioning in a healthy way. But we are deeply blessed in our community, because for those who are struggling, there exists a group who arrive on the scene and help lift the burden and the pressure and the pain empowering those underneath to reclaim their lives and their dignity, to return to their own hopes and dreams in building their Mishkan. And those individuals are our beloved JFS. The administrators and therapists of JFS are heroic in their dedication and devotion to our community, in their efforts and their sacrifice to ensure that not one person in our community, man, woman, or child, faces the struggles of life without someone standing there to help hold up the urea and guide them to recovery and growth. And we are here together this morning because each and every one of us has an achrayus, and I would suggest a privilege, to be part of their work. And we, us, participate in holding up the Urios in three very crucial ways. Number one, we provide financial support for their work. And attending this morning's breakfast is an incredible contribution. And hopefully, after learning so much of what JFS does for our community, we will all be moved to contribute even more. Number two, all of us can help play a role in identifying those who need help and ensuring that they do not feel alone. There are many ways to lift the Urios, connecting people to JFS, remaining in touch with those we know who are struggling, reaching out to just touch base. And number three, the final contribution that we can all make as a community is in how we relate to these struggles as individuals and as a community. Mental illness and emotional struggle remain stigmatized within much of our community as flaws to the human condition. In reality, everyone struggles. And there is no shame in reaching out for help. If you look around the table that you are sitting at this morning, when you arrived at your table this morning and you asked everyone else at the table, how are you doing? And everyone responded, good, great, fine. Somewhere within the deep recesses of one of those responses was a hint of melancholy, because not everyone at your table is fine. Because the emotional struggles of mental illness, financial hardship, alienation, and all of the different issues that we learned of this morning affect everyone. Imagine a world where we could come to our table and people could say to us, I'm not fine. My spouse is struggling with depression. My spouse is struggling with an eating disorder. I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm struggling with the fact that one of my children is addicted to drugs. I'm struggling with alcohol. Imagine that they could say this to you without being judged, without compromising the future shidduchim, without being shunned and viewed like they did something wrong. When kidney disease strikes a family, those that step up are celebrated. When cancer strikes a family, they are embraced with compassion and love. And we need to bring these same sentiments to families struggling with depression, anxiety, personality disorders, and more. Families in our community who have children or they themselves are struggling with addiction, an area of mental health that JFS intends to address on a communal level more deeply in the near future, should not struggle in silence. These are not choices that people have made. These are complex challenges that emerge from a variety and a constellation of factors, and they need our unconditional love and support to make it through. We are so blessed to have such a communal treasure at the heart of our precious Kehillah. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu continue to bless JFS for its noble work in helping us all, in building our personal and communal and national Mishkan Hashem. Thank you so much.